Hey guys, 008 Alex here, playing the USS Enterprise in World of Warships. This is the first game. So, what I was supposed to do was a live commentary, but some editing failure happened on my part. So, this is going to be an interesting post-commentary match. So, pretty much what you need to know about the Enterprise in real life: most decorated ship of World War II for the US Navy. And there's a lot of other stuff on here, but there's a lot of other things, or a lot of other sources you can go check out to learn more about her. This is the first match I ever played with her in World of Warships, and what you need to know about her in World of Warships is she's a Tier 8 Premium US Navy aircraft carrier. However, she's very peculiar compared to the other parts, or other carriers of the line, simply because she has only Tier 7 aircraft and has a setup much closer to that of a Japanese carrier, as in the balanced 2 fighter, 2 torpedo bomber, and 2 dive bomber squadrons. Most US carriers don't have any torpedo bombers unless you go strike, which then you have no fighters, or only 1 fighter squadron. And I pointed that out in the video, but again, that was supposed to be a live commentary match, but editing failure on my part. So pretty much what I'm doing right now is just trying to position my fighters in a way to try and deny the Lexington on the enemy team line of sight, or not line of sight, but just deny him strike capabilities. However, this being post-commentary, he was a air superiority loadout with 2 fighters and 2 dive bombers, if I remember right. So, pretty much what I'm trying to do is just do some spotting in the north at C and then south at A. I'd also like to point out that this being my first game and carriers in general for a while, I played a quick match on my Lexington earlier. I'm a little bit rusty to say the least, and Enterprise is a different beast entirely from Lexington, with her much more micromanaged playstyle, because she has 7 squadrons instead of the 4. And coming up is when I make my first oops. So I see that the Lexington has sent fighter squadrons over to C, or over to A, my bad. Sorry, I'm trying to record this while having a screen that's pretty small, because post-commentary. Pretty much what's happening is pretty much the Lexington is going to start murdering all of my planes, because the Enterprise only has Tier 7, those are Tier 8, probably the upgraded. And what I'm trying to do right now is just route them over my Edinburgh to try and provide some AA cover while I try and route my fighters over here. Problem is I mess up on my fighter routing, and that squadron they're engaging the fighters dies horribly. And then I'm like, maybe I should route my second fighter squadron over, which is what I'm trying to do now. So yeah, I end up losing quite a few squadrons to this, and the Enterprise has, the way she's set up is very fighter focused. I can't remember the exact stats off the top of my head. I'll definitely probably point that out later. She has a lot more fighters in her hangar bay in reserve than she does strike aircraft like torpedo bombers and dive bombers. So she's basically, the way you're supposed to play her is air superiority over the enemy. Throw your fighters out there. They're 2-7. They still do decent damage. They don't have a ton of survivability. Kill everything with your fighters and then go strike. But I mess up here and lose a lot of my strike craft early, because I'm not exactly super great at playing it yet. And I'm, again, rusty on carrier play. What I then try and do is, because again, I'm trying to just destroy the remaining fighters and everything, try and decide to go for the Arizona class, about the USS Arizona Tier 6 Premium. This is actually a really good match for Enterprise, because she can see up to Tier 10, and Tier 10 has horrible things for carriers like Minotaurs, Des Moines, Montanas, pretty much anything that has an American that's American, with a metric ton of AA. And if you look at the drop pattern right now, it's actually really unique. This is something Wargaming has been doing quite a lot, or did with Enterprise and Kaga, of having premium carriers have a very unique quirk, I guess, would be to their playstyle. Kaga had a very weird sort of 3-4 torpedoes spread out, and then 3 very concentrated torpedoes in the back, but Kaga had much faster torpedoes. Enterprise, being a US carrier, she kind of has slower, higher damage torpedoes, but they're hard to use. And then that user saw is Enterprise's special dive bomber reticle, which is Enterprise, from what I can tell and what a lot of people agree with, is it was designed to kill battleships. Primarily, because that ellipse pattern is pretty much the perfect size for a battleship to fade into. She's also the first, Harsh mentioned earlier, she is the first U.S. carrier, or carrier in general, to have armor-piercing bombs. Meaning that they will, instead of doing what most bombs do normally, of hit the deck, explode, hopefully set a fire or two, what they can do is actually do citadel damage. Or penetrate through the deck armor, penetrate into the citadel, do a ton of damage there. Which is something that not other bombs do, and it's definitely aimed against battleships, primarily the German battleships with their weaker deck armor compared to other nations. I'm trying to do some strafing right now with my fighter squadron. But pretty much what that means is she's designed to kill German battleships, what we've been able to tell. Because it can go in through the relatively weak turtleback armor design of the German battleships. And if you've played any battleships in World of Warships and you shoot at a Tirpitz, a Bismarck, or any of those at long range, you have a higher chance of doing citadel damage because of the way the armor is laid out. It's weaker on top compared to something like an American battleship like North Carolina, Alabama, which are designed for long-range engagements where they don't get citadeled from the top very often. They get citadeled to the side much easier, whereas Germans are the reverse of that. But pretty much what I'm just trying to do is knock out the Lexington fighter groups right now. And not doing a terrible job, not doing great. I also somehow managed to miss in the original thing of the Lexington dying pretty early on, or somewhat early in this match. If you also look at that North Carolina at the very back of the map, yeah, they're AFK. I didn't notice that, or I didn't sort of realize or pay attention to that because a lot of things happen in this game. Doesn't really end super, or they disconnected, so that's kind of free damage if I ever decide to go for it. What I'm trying to do now is line up on the Scharnhorst, which is tier 7, so in theory my plane should be alright. However, me being out of practice with my carriers, and what I'm trying to do here is just get it so I can do a manual drop. Then he starts turning, and I try and route them there. And the problem is the Enterprise still has very weak torpedoes, or very weak torpedo bombers, health-wise. So if you look, they're just sort of dropping horribly. But yeah, back to the sort of strange torpedo drop pattern. Enterprise has a really weird W-ish pattern of one forward, one in the front, then one behind it, one in the front, one behind it. It's really weird, and it makes it very hard to kill destroyers with that, because instead of getting the usual wall of torpedoes that you would get with most other carriers, you get that really weird W, which is not bad against, it's not super effective against battleships, but you can make it work. But you can't really kill destroyers, because you can just sort of slip through the gaps. The destroyers can just slip through those very large gaps in the torpedoes, and then with them being much slower torpedoes, is their U.S. Navy or at least U.S. aircraft-mounted torpedoes. They're not super fast, so there's a lot of time for reaction to react and not die from them. Yep, and I think it was at this point that I realized that the entire north flank has fallen horribly. And this is where I make a decent mistake that could have easily gotten me killed if my team had been worse. I click autopilot, I'm too busy managing everything. I forget to set it to full power, or full speed, because Wargaming's autopilot, when you set it, only goes half speed. So I'm basically trying to run away from them at half speed, which Enterprise can go about 33 knots. So I'm going about 16, I believe, or something around there. So pretty much, they're catching me a lot faster than they would normally. And I'm trying to drop on this Arizona. And this is what Arizona has a turtleback armor scheme as well, because she's an older battleship, but still kind of hit and miss with dive bombers. And I mean, if you've watched other people like iChase Gaming, Notzer, Arun, Flamma, if you see them, they can actually do pretty big damage numbers with those, because they go into the Citadel and basically do what battleships do if you get a multiple Citadel hit and just nuke half their health away. Haven't had that luck yet with it, but I've also this is the first game I ever played, and I'm learning with you guys, I guess. What I'm trying to do now is my aircraft's up that way to try and help deal with I think it's a Bismarck, a Hipper, and a Sims class right now. Trying to help root them out, or trying to help kill them. However, if you look at the bottom, if you look at my current fighter loadout, not exactly the most healthy thing. I have a lot of, again, Enterprise is a very fighter-oriented build, not so much a, it's really not that much of a, it's really fighter-oriented, not so much strike aircraft, whereas stuff like HUZZAH has, you'll never run out of torpedo bombers if you throw them away, even if you, if I can speak English, it'd be incredibly helpful with this video. But HUZZAH, you can basically throw aircraft away, no problem. Enterprise, you can do that with the fighters, but you don't really have a ton. You have a decent amount on spare, because she has the largest hangar of Tier 8, but you don't have a ton of capability of wasting your strike aircraft. Then I mess up here with this drop. It actually turns out better than I thought. Pretty much what I'm trying to do is keep out of that line at the Hipper's egg range, while also keeping away from that, I think it was the Hipper's fighter aircraft as well. I'm trying to keep out there. And this is sort of when I realize I've made a mistake of I'm going half speed and that Sims is catching up to me. And I personally am an owner of a Sims because I'm a dirty wallet warrior, as we all know. Or you will know, hopefully, in the future when I make more of these. Pretty much what happens, though, is the Sims basically starts chasing me down and I can't do anything to stop him because I'm running out of strike aircraft. And again, the torpedo bombers really aren't. But yeah, I also managed to get a blind hit on that the Bismarck with that torpedo bomber. I guess that's one nice thing about when you're going against battleships. But yeah, that North Carolina in the very back of the map is AFK, or disconnected at least, because he moves the turrets. The turrets moved a little, and then he disconnected for some reason. But yeah, pretty much what I'm trying to do is just get my fighter aircraft, or my, strike aircraft out there, and try and hold them at bay. But this is sort of when the captain skill, which I hopefully can talk about later, the emergency takeoff skill comes in handy, even though they are debatably better choices for carrier drivers. But hopefully I can get that in the full review I should be having soonish. Pretty much it just lets you take your aircraft off, even if your aircraft, if the hangar bay, if the flight deck is on fire, you can still launch and recover aircraft, which is very nice. But yes, hopefully you just, trying to find small talk right now. It's just, the match going on. Trying to line up on the Bismarck, trying to get those massive Citadel hits that I've seen before. Not doing too well. Still not a bad result. Like, there are definitely, I'm definitely doing more damage in the Enterprise in this game than I have usually done in my Lexington. This is also because I play the Lexington as an air superiority loadout with dive bombers, which I struggle with at times. But yeah, that Sims, I'm starting to actually really get worried because he's been sort of peppering me the entire match. Pretty much I'm just not sure why I'm looking at the... Oh, also the Hipper is shooting at me too. That was what just hit the hole right there. Not sure why I was looking at the Enterprise right there. Or out of the map. Yeah, I think it might have just been all my aircraft were rearming, so I couldn't do anything at the moment. Yeah, this is actually when I like to start crediting the team right now with that HUZZAH that's coming around. Is actually a really big help. He actually pretty much ends up saving me. Now, I'm actually a little concerned because that's a Sims class destroyer, and if you know anything about World of Warships, the Sims is designed as a, or at least the U.S. line in general, is a gunboat line, whereas the Japanese are generally regarded as the torpedo boat line. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about, the drop pattern, how they're a lot slower and that's a very wide drop pattern, so there's plenty of room for that Sims to maneuver out. Then I think I got hit by the Hipper, the Bismarck's main battery, so that was pretty painful. Yeah, that's when the HUZZAH comes out and starts being a really awesome person for this. Because now he's taking the fire and actually shooting at the Sims. Because, believe it or not, if any of you are avid Japanese destroyer fans, they have guns. Because that's a huge mistake I see, because especially people that watch the older closed beta videos of World of Warships, and then they start playing, and they have like the Minikaze, and they just don't shoot the guns, because they're thinking the Minikaze is completely overpowered. Which, if you're... It can be, but it's really reliant on how intelligent are the enemy team's battleships. So you see games where the Japanese destroyers don't fire the guns at all. they have them. They aren't as good as U.S. destroyer or especially Russian destroyers, because those things are freaking amazing gunboating. German destroyers are kind of 50-50. I don't play them very much personally, really, but yeah. And huge credit to the Shirtsuyu and the Amagi. At least Shirtsuyu for that, and the Amagi comes in to be a pretty big help later. We're currently ahead on point. We're currently ahead on cap turns right now. I think we're also ahead on points at this point in time. Pun not intended. That's kind of what I mean about the drop pattern. It can be very frustrating because if you had done really any other carry, you probably would have been able to get 2 torp hits. Even though that was also bad aim on my part. But yeah, the only issue with what's happening now in the match is we're starting to run into, at least this will happen a bit later in the match, we run into the problem of I ran out of, actually I'm pretty much out of strike planes right now. And again, that's the issue of the Enterprise having a very limited strike bay hangar, or strike loadout hangar size. And I'm just, at some point we'll let my team know that I'm running out of strike aircraft, and I'm pretty much out at this point. And the other issue is when you, because I actually was in my Alabama, or my new North Carolina a few matches ago from this, and I felt bad for this Enterprise driver because it was like a tier 8 game, yes, but my entire team's battleships were North Carolinas and Alabamas, which have a lot of AA, and Enterprise only having tier 7 aircraft doesn't want to go up against the combined AA multiple US battleships. And I'm just trying to line up a strike here. And again, this is why I have, this is the, and then there's also an Atlanta in the back, which is just shredding my aircraft, because the Alabama's close-in weaponry, close-in AA weapons are pretty powerful, and then the Atlanta was probably defensive fire as well. Right now, this was just me trying to kind of get rid of some spotter planes, even though I was a fighter, but get rid of a little bit more sight for the enemy. And also, I'm just trying to get a little bit more XP with what I can do. Because I'm pretty much, at this point, only able to spot targets, but my team's doing a pretty good job of spotting them right now. And that damage number up there, I think it was something like 94,000. Again, sorry, I'm looking at a very small window of what is actually going on in the match while I'm doing post-commentary, because, again, microphone decided to not work properly. So, post-commentary. Hopefully I can get the review in the second game I'm planning to upload soon-ish, hopefully within a day or two of this one. But hopefully that'll be live comms, because I think I've sorted it out, and it's a lot easier to say what's going on. It's a lot more painful just because of the micromanaging and talking, but it's easier to do, I think, in the short term, or at least being able to actually see the entire match and have control of my mouse instead of me, because, yeah, I'm just rambling at this point. Pretty much what's happening is I've told my team I'm out of strike aircraft. I'm pretty much using my fighter as a spotter. However, we are ahead on points. However, the enemy is capping B, which means that we'll start losing our points. Again, credit to that Shirtsuyu driver. Definitely a great battle buddy, I guess. However, what I didn't realize at this point is the match is actually almost over time-wise. Yeah, this is a full 20-minute game, surprisingly enough. And pretty much I just realized, hey, I can't do anything right now because both fighter squadrons are gone. And I turn on all the extra little bits on the map, which is aircraft, the range I'll get spotted by air, I think my AA range, and my secondary range. Pretty much just crediting the Amagi and the Shirtsuyu right now. Because again, they were the real heroes of this match. I did something, but I really kind of, at this point, a lot of those damage ships are not from my doing. Because I got a lot, again, I've been out of strike planes for about 2 minutes at this point. But yeah, this is the first match I really ever recorded for this. And I've been meaning to do this for a while, but I just really haven't had the time. And I was like, and the heroes are like, oh wait, the match is pretty much over, and that North Carolina was AFK, the majority of the match, if not all of it. Yep, and then pretty much 270,000 credits, 6,500 XP. However, this was recorded on July 2nd. So we have on the US server at least, the Independence Day weekend bonuses, which is like 50, I think 200% more XP, and then the premium camo 50% more XP because it's tier 8 premium warship. Decent amount of commander XP. Then once I get done here soonish, come on post me, or current me, I guess. Then I go to detail report, just look. Yeah, I did spotting, and then I think I shot down the Colorado's aircraft. I think I shot down their plane at some point in the match. And then team list, again, huge shout out to the Shirtsuyu driver and the Amagi driver. They were the heroes of this match. I just sort of existed. And then, yep, North Carolina was probably AFK the entire match. And hopefully this will lead on to the, sort of mini captain skill review thing. Once it loads. Wolf Warships, thank you. Pretty much I'm just using my Lexington captain. I have Dogfighting Expert, which just does more damage for the aircraft. Really helpful, especially on Enterprise with her much lower tier fighter. This really helps balance out that issue. Then Expert Rear Gunner is there we go. Expert Rear Gunner is the next skill. It just kind of helps. It's probably replaceable with a lot of other things, but I've had this captain for a while and I haven't respected because I'm cheap. So I'm just it just helps the tail gunner shoot down a bit more accurately. Emergency takeoff, as I said, emergency takeoff is just helpful with, if you get lit on fire, you're not completely useless as a carrier. And then I have air supremacy, mostly as a holdover from my Lexington, of just getting the extra fighter and the extra dive bomber. It helps. It just it's definitely, but also concealment expert is probably what you should definitely go for. At least, if not your 10-point captain, your 14-point captain, because it just is a great skill. Then I hit the wrong button because I'm smart. Good job, past me. But you could also easily do advanced firing training or manual AA. But I don't really find, and you could do superintendent as well. But this is tier 8. Carrier sniping isn't as big of an issue right now, especially because carriers are kind of rare, and there's other things to shoot at, and just not in the meta right now, I guess. Then modules I don't have enough money because I'm cheap right now to get the third module. Hit the wrong button. Can you tell this is my first video, guys? But yeah, I have Air Group Mod 1, which just a bit more fighter power for the fighters, since again they're not bad, but they're only tier 7 and a tier 8 carrier, meaning you can actually, compared to the Lexington with her Corsairs, just to kind of give her a bit of an edge on that. Air Group Mod 2, I think, is plus some health and 50% ammunition. Again, help you stay in the fight longer, hopefully not lose as many aircraft. Damage Control 1, just kind of a good skill to have, less chance of being lit on fire. I personally run Steering Gears Mod 2, just because I kind of enjoy the extra mobility. You could definitely go with Damage Control Damage Control 2, but I generally run Rudder Shift just because if I need to dodge, and actually I'm talking right now about the Lexington. I had a match in her right before this, actually, where I dodged a Kagero Torp run. Admittedly, it was a point-blank range, but I managed to dodge that at the last second because of the faster Rudder Shift. Then Concealment Expert, or Concealment Module, definitely better than the target acquisition, because if you're in a carrier and you get the target acquisition and it becomes necessary, something's gone horribly wrong already. And Concealment Module and Concealment Expert as well definitely helps everything not go wrong quite as quickly. And then Enterprise again is the first U.S. or first carrier in general to have armor-piercing bombs, which is pretty nice. It's a bit annoying when you have to deal with destroyers, especially with Enterprise. With the way Enterprise's torps are, you're kind of hopeless against destroyers. You also have a lot less 5-inch guns for emergencies than Lexington, because she has the 4, where the the 4 mounts on the superstructure, whereas the Enterprise has 40mm emplacements. Overall, I like her as a ship. I think it's definitely maybe worth buying. I'm not sure, honestly. Again, this